All right. Those are the PSAs. Also, I want to thank all of you guys for my birthday love yesterday. I really, really do appreciate it. Although Jerry told me I looked like I was 74. I'm just saying. So, but I want to thank y'all so much for the birthday love. It was amazing. That's part of what I want to talk about today when we talk about the rest and the reset. So thank y'all so much for tuning in and for commenting and for doing that. I really do appreciate it. I am just thankful to have made it another year around the sun, and looking forward to this one because it was a good year. It was a crazy year. It was an up and down year. There was some stuff, and we talked about it here. There was some stuff. And so I am just grateful to be here for all of my friends and family and loved ones and all the love I received and some videos I received, and y'all just make my heart sing. So thank you so much for all of that. I am going to be coming out soon, and you'll see more and more around the podcast. You're going to start seeing me more, doing more and more clips around that for the podcast, for the radio, really getting some messages out there. I just feel called to do this. Who knew that this is the space that I would be in, but I am just really, really called to continue to lean into this a lot more in this particular space. So stay tuned. You'll keep seeing me. So thank you for following. Please pass it on, especially the podcast. I've got a big, hairy, audacious goal for podcast downloads for the end of the year. So if you have not, I would love it if you would go the Rutledge Perspective podcast on all platforms. Please go subscribe, go listen, go give a review, go send me a comment and tell me what you want me to talk about on the next podcast. They are short and sweet. They are, the most is 30 minutes, and that's when I'm interviewing somebody, but the rest of them are anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes. So it's a quick burn for you. You don't have to spend your whole day listening, but hopefully really meaty for you. So I'd really appreciate it if you guys would pass it along, listen, download, all that kind of stuff. It really does make a difference, and the reviews really do make a difference. So thank you for that. So we're going to talk about resting and resetting. And as I said, this is. There are times when I wake up, on a Sunday or on Monday morning, I'm like, oh, what am I going to talk about on Tuesday? But something always happens. It comes to me, and this is probably the first time since I've been doing the show where I'm like walking in the studio saying, oh, well, what are we going to talk about today? But really, that's not true, because I didn't know what we were going to talk about, and I really want to talk about this whole idea of resting and resetting, this idea of, like we talked about last week, that intentions, being intentional about what you're doing, but also about opening up space, relinquishing control for those of us who are control freaks, who have control issues, who want to know everything that's going to go on, who want to know the plan. We want to know what's going on. Proper prior planning prevents poor performance, right? All of us type A insecure overachievers. Really talking about this rest and reset and opening up space in order to achieve the things we say that we want, and opening up space to really get clear on, is what we want the thing that's the right thing, or is just the thing, right? So I went to Wimberley, Texas over the weekend, and it's a place called Sinya on Lone Man Creek, Sinya, Sinya on Lone Man Creek. It is an amazing spot out in the middle of nowhere on Lone Man Creek in Wimberley, and it's just beautiful. It's glamping, so it's a tent. So people who are close to me are like, "You going camping?" I'm like, no, I'm going glamping. I don't do outside bugs laying in dirt. That no. This is a beautiful, beautiful tent. It is, 2 rooms. It's got a king size bed. It's got a kitchenette. It's got, closet tub. I mean, this is not your normal camping. This is glamping. It just happens to be a hotel room outside with all these beautiful decks and things like that. And so you can find it at hillcountrysinya.com, hillcountrysinya.com, all run together. And the owner is just lovely, new owner. So it is adult only and only 2 people at a time. So FYI, nice little romantic getaway if you want to do that. But it's a great solo piece. And so I drove up there on Thursday, and I for a long time, because my cousin used to do this. That's where I got it from. My cousin, every year for her birthday, would take her birthday off, a few days around it every year. And so probably, I don't know, 10 years ago or more, I started doing that, at least taking off my birthday. No matter what was happening, I was going to take off on my birthday. And then a few years ago, I started doing some kind of solo trip on my birthday. And the whole purpose of doing that was to really just reflect on the year before, think about what had happened, what I'd learned, what had grown, what I wanted to do the next year, be really sitting in gratitude, all of those kind of things, and just have some time and space to be still. Because again, my mind is messy. I am usually having multiple conversations at a time in my own head, right? And so sometimes when I talk to other people, they're like, okay, wait, I missed something. And I realized I've started the conversation in the middle because, see, I was having it with me. And then I started having it with you. So getting to Senya, the whole purpose of doing this was to really look back in this COVID time. And then we got the Delta variant and the Mu variant and booster, no booster. And we're supposed to have another snowpocalypse, according to the almanac this year. I mean, just, there's been a lot. There's been a lot. And if you add on top of that, business stuff and just interaction stuff and engagement and managing energy and just all the madness, it's just been a lot. And so I got there on Thursday afternoon, and it was just, as soon as I parked my car, it was like I could breathe, right? I saw the place, because I went there for my 50th, my big birthday. And I saw the place, and it was familiar, and it was just so nice. And so I walked in, put all my stuff down, sat on the deck, got a glass of champagne, and just sat and watched the hummingbirds, who are hilarious, by the way. Hummingbirds are absolutely hilarious. And so I sat there and watched the hummingbirds. Now, I don't do bugs. And so there weren't a lot of bugs. See, God was watching out for me. There weren't a lot of bugs. There weren't a lot of spiders, not a lot of ants. None of that stuff this time. He knew I was there and knew I needed this time and needed to be able to sit outside. And so I got out and I sat there. And on Thursday, I didn't really think about much, right? And so there's no TV. There's Wi-Fi, but there's no TV. And so I was just listening to some podcasts, listening to some books I downloaded. And then I got up Friday morning and did my intention. So, I talked last week about this new process I've been in. I've been on it. Today I'll be setting my intentions midday instead of early this morning. But I will be setting my intentions and having that quiet time today. And it's really made a difference. And so that next morning, Friday morning, I was up with the roosters because the roosters woke me up. And I had to laugh because so Senya is one of those certified dark places. So that means that there's not all the light pollution. So you truly can look up and see the stars. And the sun really does wake you up. And so I woke up that next morning. It was kind of chilly. And I went outside and I wrote in my journal and I set my intentions and I had my little latte. And the hummingbirds started coming around and the bees started coming around. And I'm terrified of bees, but the bees started coming around. And I thought, well, I'm going to just take some time and just go kind of walk around, because if I sit for 4 days, my body's not going to be happy with that. I need to actually move. So I went to Wimberley and I had my mask on because Wimberley is, the community has a tendency to be a little bit of an older community. And so when you register, one of the things they say is, please wear your mask because it is an older community with compromised individuals. So I went to Wimberley, had my mask on. And it was probably 50-50, mask, no mask. But people were so nice. You didn't have to run up on somebody being nasty because you had yours on or didn't have yours on. Except for one store that had a sign that said, mask not required, enjoy your freedom. I passed right on by that store. See, I'm not trying to get in all that madness because that told me right there what your attitude was. So I passed right on by. But got a chance to really just walk. I walked all over downtown Wimberley. I did have my Rice Krispie treat, right? So I did enjoy some good food and just paused. I went and saw some amazing art. They had these beautiful art galleries. And I took a minute to just rest, and I didn't realize how wound up I had been. And I knew I needed to rest and recharge because that's what I do every year. It's kind of gotten to be a habit, right? You just do it, but I hadn't really thought about it. So I did that on Saturday, and then I picked up some food and I went back to Senya and sat outside and ate my dinner and I think I did watch some TV or Hulu or something that night. Um, and then I got up Sunday and set my intentions again on Sunday. And I just sat out on the deck all day on Saturday. I didn't move. I sat all day out on the deck. Now, there were a couple times I did have to move kind of quickly because the bee decided he wanted to see what I was doing. But it was a time to just be. And like I said, I was watching the hummingbirds, right? Who were just madness. And then there was a mama cardinal and her two little babies. And I had to laugh because there was a couple times when the babies would land on the deck and they were trying to drink water out of these big plants. The planters had the little trays. And so I'd look up and I'd see the little head peeping around the back, right? They're like, we just making sure you're not coming, right? And just being out there and seeing that. And what happened on Saturday morning when I got up was as I walked outside onto the deck, there was a hawk. And he almost landed on the railing. And I think I moved too much. And so I kind of looked up that symbolism. And the symbolism around hawks is around creativity. It's around seeing things that other people can't see. Because think about hawks, right? They are hunters. Their eyesight is beyond anything we can even fathom as human beings. They move so swiftly. They are almost all seeing, right? They are deliberate in what they do. And sorry about that. They're doing some work outside and that made me nervous. I didn't know what was happening. And so, you know, it talked about if you see a hawk, and if a hawk is your spirit animal, there are a lot of people who think about those kind of things. Is your spirit animal, then it's that whole idea of opening up creativity, of opening up possibilities, how they just truly float on the wind. How when they are in community, that it is their strength and their sight and their ability to see things way, way, way before anybody else can see them. And I thought about that because I am able, one of the gifts that I have, one of the God-given gifts that I have is the ability to connect dots that other people don't even see that are there, right? And to reframe things in ways that people can't see. I do that for my clients all the time. And so I was able to sit there and respond to a request for a feature article. And the way I was even responding to the article, I thought, wow, I would not have been able to do this if I'd been sitting in my office. I wouldn't have been able to do this if I was just at my house. But here in this space outside with the roosters having, wakened me, with the hawks flying around, with the hummingbirds going in and out, it was a whole different kind of peace and freedom. And what also hit me during that time is how quick we are to dismiss and block that openness. Remember a minute ago, I said we're going to talk about rest and reset and opening up space. Because when you have a messy mind, when there's so much stuff you need to do, because there was other stuff I wanted to do. There was some writing I wanted to get done. There was some other tech stuff I wanted to get done that I didn't. And it took me a minute not to get down on myself and beat myself up about not having done that. But it just wasn't the time. And in hindsight, I know that it just wasn't the time. But to sit in that moment and just open up to really say, you know what? I am not going to think about this that I'm doing. I'm just going to do. I'm just going to let it flow. I'm going to surrender to the flow. Y'all know that's been my thing this year, and it's been so hard for me to surrender. I'm just going to surrender. I'm going to surrender to this space. I'm going to surrender to this time. I'm going to surrender to whatever is supposed to come out in representing me and where I am now in this article that I'm so honored to be asked to participate in. And it was incredible. It was just incredible. And so what hit me was how many times we block our blessings. How many times we don't see the real path because we have decided what the path is going to be. We have blocked the openness to possibilities. And not that we aren't moving and moving forward and that we aren't excited and that we aren't positive. But if we get so locked in to what we believe and what we think and what we know without at least leaving some space around all of that for more information to come in, you never know what's going to show up for you. You never know what's going to show up for you. I know for me, I finally, there's a few things that have happened, and I finally kind of sat into some things and said, if this is what's meant to be, I know where I know where I want to go. I know where I'm feeling led to go. So yes, I want to go, but I'm feeling led. So I felt led, and then I had to decide that I wanted it. Because see, that's how it works. Because I had a plan, and then man plans, God laughs, right? So I had a plan, and something else started showing up. For years, I just finally had the wherewithal to recognize it. And I've noticed it off and on, but really lately I've recognized it. And so in surrendering over the last, and I will say it's really over the last few weeks, last maybe couple of months, really getting to that place where I'm like, you know what? I just need to actively, and with intention, let go of the stuff I can't control. Be in control of the stuff I can, but actively and with intention, let go of the stuff that I can't. Because all I'm doing is making myself crazy. And all I'm doing is trying to force things that are just not real and probably are not intended for me in the first place. Okay? So by opening up this space and being there in Senya and being in this open environment and with these trees and with these birds and with, even with the bees, it was an awakening and an opening that I think we don't give ourselves an opportunity to do. And especially as leaders, we are so focused on the next thing. And believe me, I get it. I am a process thinker, right? You do this, then this, then this, then this, then this. It's about the goal, that book by Goldratt, The Goal. If you understand the whole process, then you understand where things break down. If you can understand where things break down, you can fix those. But once you fix something, it's just going to move. You just know that. That's how processes work. Processes are living and breathing. But you got to have some kind of process so you know what's broken, right? And so when we get in that process thinking as leaders, when we get in, we understand where we're trying to go, and then we start backing into how we're going to get there. And we get so locked into the plan, we don't leave room for the additional data that comes through that tells us we might need to do something different. We don't leave room for the flexibility. We don't leave room to adapt to new circumstances. And we don't leave room for creativity. And that lack of creativity, that being so stringent around processes, can actually stifle innovation. It can lock our creativity. But if we are willing to have the courage to just be open to possibilities and open to space, and to let go of that death grip we have on processes, that death grip we have on an outcome, the things that come forward are incredible, right? That person that you may never have thought would be capable of doing work that you needed to have done is going to show up. Mm-hmm. That person on your team that you may have written off, when you kind of let go, you open up, you are clear about expectations, you're clear about the overall goal and mission. You give people guidance and you give them freedom with maybe some guardrails, but freedom to operate. I bet you, dime to donuts, you will be surprised at what people give you. I know Jerry's laughing at me. I don't even know where I got that. Dime to donuts. That must be something from West Texas, y'all. Everybody tells me I was born 40, so which means I have to be about 80 now, like Jerry said. But if you open up that space to be creative, to let things actually flow through you, we have a tendency as leaders to think that if we're not in control of everything, if we don't have everything planned, if we don't have everything written out, that we are somehow failing as a leader. And the failure is not having enough space to be able to respond to what's real and what's appropriate and what's accurate and what's necessary. And sometimes what's necessary is to be still. What's necessary is to be quiet. What's necessary is to let go and let somebody else. Because how are you going to continue to move and grow and develop as a leader if you're holding on so tight to that work that you did to get you where you are now? Because if you're holding so tight to that, you're never going to be able to move, because you're never going to have anybody who can take your role. Or you're going to be able to build people up to take your role, but you've held on so tight that they're going to pull them up above you. And you'll be stuck in that same place. In that same place. I heard something this morning that said, if you are not willing to take a risk to leave your desk, you will be at that same desk 20 years from now. And that, I felt that one, y'all. I felt that one in my gut. Because we get, sometimes there's comfort in knowing what's going to go on. That's why sometimes it's so hard to leave a job. Even if you're miserable, it's so hard to leave because it's the enemy you know. There's comfort in that misery. At least I know what to expect when I get there. If I change, what if it's worse? If I change, what if I have to learn something new? If I change, what if I fail? If I change, what if? What if you fail? Failure is not fatal, and it is not final, as long as you're failing forward. So what if? What if you just get still and open up space to let whatever's going to happen, happen? And trust yourself to be able to respond to whatever it is. That's been a big revelation for me in the last few months. It isn't about trusting other people. And I would challenge you guys to think about it too, to really evaluate where your concern is. Is it that you don't trust your team, or is it that you don't trust you? I found that some of the issue was that I was having trouble trusting me. And I know me. I know my issues, right? And I'm telling myself, yeah, I trust me. If I'm going to bet on anybody, I'm going to bet on me. But was I really? And that's about experience, right? That's about whatever trauma we've been through before, whatever pain or failure or something that we didn't like had happened before. And so because that pain, even though the pain may not be recent, the memory doesn't go away. Can we trust that we can handle it this time? Is it going to be worse? Oh man, I remember how that felt. I don't want that to happen again. But this time, if it happens, it's happening when we have experience. It's not the first time. We've been exposed. We understand what to do with that. The other thing that happened when I talk about rest and reset is really starting to sit deep in who you are and what your voice is. I was honored and blessed, and I don't talk about them enough, I don't think, about my village, my personal village. Because if you're following the Rutledge perspective and you're commenting and you're doing that kind of stuff, you are part of my village. But my personal village, right? My personal board of directors. These amazing men and women who truly, truly make me who I am. Truly. I got some messages, some birthday messages that really just bowled me over. And I'm feeling emotional just thinking about it, actually. That were so kind and so uplifting and so, Laurel, you may not see it, but I see how far you have come and how strong your voice has gotten and how lit up you get and how your message has gotten so clear and how you are so focused on what your truth is and how strong you're showing up and how open you are and how willing to be vulnerable, all these kind of things. And so and I tell you that to say, it has not been overnight. It has been a journey. It has been a lot of therapy. Thank you to my therapist. It's been a lot of therapy. It's been a lot of prayer. It's been a lot of support. It has been a lot of intentional resting, of intentional space, of intentional giving myself the opportunity to just be. Because when you are an insecure overachiever, when you're an overthinker, when you are a doer, when you have been trained to get stuff done, that sitting still means something been happening. When sitting still means, what's wrong with you? Why are you sitting there? As opposed to sitting still means rest. Sitting still means taking a moment to think. Sitting still means being quiet and preparing and thinking before you act or thinking before you speak. Sitting still is not a bad thing. But when you've been taught that stillness, there's a problem in stillness, that idea of taking time to think and rest and really develop strategies, right? Because sometimes the development of a strategy needs to have time to just be still. It makes it very difficult for us to give ourselves the gift of that time. I have a friend of mine in California, and he is masterful at the pause. He says all the time, he said, you know what? I decided to do this thing because I need some time to think. He said, I'm still thinking. And it'll be 3 months from now. And I'm like, so what do you think? He said, oh, I'm still thinking. He is the most patient individual with making decisions. But once he makes it, he's made it because he's taken the time to think. He's taken the time to examine. He's taken the time to be thoughtful and to gather information and to gather data. So when he's ready to move, he's really ready to move. Now, that doesn't mean he can't move expeditiously when he needs to. That's not what I mean. But when he is making these big, broad decisions, he says, I need some time. I need to think about this. I need to think about this. And I'm going to take my time and think about it. And he doesn't get all head up about it. He doesn't get all upset about it. He doesn't get all nervous about it because he has decided he's going to take the time to think. And he is phenomenal at that. And me, this is my friend that I call him, oh my God, what am I going to do? And he's like, so do you have something in writing that you're trying to make a decision on? I'm like, no, but he's like, well, then why are you calling me? He's like, you ain't got a decision to make. Why are you calling me? Why are you all upset about this? And why do you care? Now, he's also one that his list of care about is extremely small. It's extremely small. His life is so simple because his list is small. Because many things he doesn't care about at all. And I don't mean he cares very little. I mean, not at all. And he's not ugly about it. He's not nasty about it. He's not all screaming in the streets about it. He just doesn't care. And if he doesn't care, it's not on the list. So it just doesn't exist. Now, I'm not wired that way. So I have an issue. But we all need people like that in our village. And so when I was able to sit down and really think and pause, and I think about this leadership piece that we talk about so often, whether you're trying to decide what you're going to do in your career, or you're trying to decide what you're going to do with your team, or you're trying to decide what you're going to do in your business that you've started. If you do not give yourself the time and the gift to think, to stop and think, and I don't mean 5 minutes. I mean, if you are making a big deliberate decision, stop and think. And even you fast movers, there are a lot of people who are fast to move, right? They're just fast. We're just going to get it done and then we'll fix it along the way. There are times to be quick and approximate. And then there are times to be slow and precise. And we have a tendency to fall away from the slow and precise because we got an instant gratification problem. We've got an expediency problem. We've got this pressure that says you got to do it now. You got to do it now. You got to do it now. If you don't make it now, you're going to miss it. If you don't make the decision now, you're going to miss it. If you don't get out ahead, you're going to miss it. How come I didn't think of that idea? I thought of that idea, but I waited, right? Innovation, you got to be quick to fail. And all of those things are true to an extent. To an extent. But we swing the pendulum so far to all or nothing that we don't give ourselves the opportunity to flex where needed. And sometimes you just gotta be still. You just gotta be still. You need to go find your senya on Lone Man Creek and watch the birds and see the hawks and pay attention to the bees and think. Have a glass of champagne. Put your feet up. Eat a Rice Krispie treat out on the deck. Go walk along the creek. Think of nothing but that first breath you're taking when you see the trees. That's the reason I have a tree in my logo. That's the reason we start with the Rutledge perspective tree when I'm coaching someone. It's about that regenerative flow. It's about that root system, that grounding that gives you the skills that you have, that makes you uniquely you, that enables you to deliver the flowers and the leaves and the branches and all this kind of stuff to the world. And to change it when it's time for that to fall off, because nothing lasts forever. And so these changes in the business, y'all know I hate that word pivot. So I'm going to say shift. When we shift our businesses, when we shift to a different product, when we shift to a different process, sometimes we get so caught up and tied up in the thing we had before that we're unwilling to just make a shift because we think it's a failure if we change. But the problem is not changing, i.e., RCA, Motorola, BlackBerry. Where are they? Right? They didn't change. They didn't shift. Took Polaroid a long time to come back, and they're still struggling. Kodak, all that folks that didn't move to digital photography. Mm-hmm. The phones that didn't move from analog to digital. All the folks that just were adamant that they were going to stay in their lane. And it's one thing to niche down and be unique. Absolutely. You know, one of the fundamentals of marketing is you got a niche. The riches are in the niches, as my new coach tells me. At the same time, you got to know where the market is moving, right? Nobody's pushing oat brand anymore. So if your big thing was oat brand, you've been out for a long time. And sometimes we got to be careful of the hype we're believing. Is that thing that's the new thing really the thing? Or is it just the popular thing? Do you really need to be on social media all the time, multiple times a day? If that's your thing, great. But if you're doing that in lieu of doing other stuff, why? Are you doing it because that's really what you want to do? Or are you doing it because you're avoiding the work that's really necessary to make the thing happen that you say you want? And that's a question I have to ask myself every day. That's a question that I think we all have to ask ourselves as we begin to do work, as we are using energy, because resources are limited. Resources being time, energy, and money, right? Time is limited. Energy is limited. Money is limited. Even folks who got a lot of it, at some point, if you're not paying attention, it goes away, mm-hmm. right? So energy and resources are limited. How are we using those? And are we using those to the best good? And we're not going to know that all the time. We're going to make mistakes, but we can recover from mistakes as long as we're deliberate about those. And as long as we're honest and we have kind of early warning systems. That's what I love about audit. I was telling someone the other day I was working with, I said, you know, I tell people all the time, you really should consider internal audit. If you're going into a business, you should, especially if you're someone who likes to learn and likes to see a bunch of different stuff, if you get bored, you should think about internal audit. Why? Not because you want to be an auditor. And let me rephrase that. You need to consider good internal audit organizations, because some of them are just not. You need to consider good internal audit organizations that are truly internal consultants that get not just around the financials, but get into the operations of a business, because you get to see the entire business. You get to learn how the business works, what leverage to pull. You get to understand customers. You get to understand product. You get to understand flow. If you are a lifelong learner, if you get bored, think about audit. Think about audit as a way to get into an organization. And then moving out of audit into other places, because you will have seen some of everything. It gives you skills that many other people in your organization will not have, because they will have specialized fairly early, right? But that idea of being able to adapt, being able to see, being able to pause and get information from everywhere, filter through that information to be able to make decisions, but to know enough that you know what? This is the decision I'm making, and this is why I'm making that decision. So when new information comes in, because you've been still, when new information comes in, you're able to then process that fairly quickly against what you know, to then say, is this new? Is it not new? Is it valid? Is it not valid? Do I need to make a change or not? And because you've been still and because you've been deliberate, you can do that without turning your whole self upside down. And more importantly, the people that are watching you, the people that are relying upon you, see what it means to be a strong leader that incorporates flexibility and adaptability into their process, that is willing to listen to, absorb, evaluate, and act upon new information. Because at the end of the day, it's about the ultimate outcomes you want to achieve, right? We get so caught up in the how sometimes that we forget about the what, and we turn the how into the what. The what is what you're trying to achieve. What is the ultimate goal that I have? The how is variable, because the how is impacted by a whole lot of different stuff. And ultimately the what can be too. But you want to keep your eyes on the prize, as they say. Where am I trying to go? What is my ultimate destination? So that when I get additional information, because I've been still, I've been strategic, I've taken time to think, I've taken time to evaluate, I've taken time to open up space for possibilities. I've taken time to let go of my death grip on a how, of my death grip on a perception, and give space to what could be. That is professional maturity and leadership. Because that death grip is serious. If we're so caught up in ego, if we're so caught up in how it's going to look and what people are going to think and how it's going to happen, right? How, you need to understand how, because you got to execute at some point. But it's the ultimate goal that's the focus, because the how can change, because more information comes in. I just can't stress that enough. And that came up because I got still. Now, again, I've always done this. We've talked about this before. I'm not talking about anything new that we haven't talked about. But in this rest and relaxation and resetting, in the process of resetting, one needs to allow oneself to reevaluate and to be still, to understand and absorb new information, to get the symbolism of the hawk landing, right? Or not. Of the hunting, right? Of the seeing the prey miles down the road and making a strategic plan to get it or not, right? So it is, and it was interesting when I talk about these hawks. There were a lot of doves around and pigeons around. Doves, bless their hearts, I think they've got to be some of the stupidest birds. They just do not move quickly at all. But they were all sitting so peaceful. And then you could hear the hawk, right? You could hear the hawks cry. And all of a sudden, just this flock of birds just went. And I thought, yeah, see, early warning signal. Just letting people know I'm coming. And I may or may not have my eyes trained on you. You'll never know. Because in that stillness, in that quiet, in that strategy planning, you don't have to let everybody know what you're doing and what your plan is. Sometimes you just got to execute. As my friend Lanier says all the time, I can show you better than I can tell you. I can show you better than I can tell you. Because sometimes we get so busy talking about what we're going to do, where we're going to be, how we're going to show up, that we forget to actually do the thing that's going to get us there. Or we make commitments that we can't live up to, or we get so caught up in what we told people that then we get paralyzed by the work we got to do. And if it's not perfect, or if we're not sure, then we sit in that analysis paralysis, because heaven forbid we have to change our mind, because now we've done told everybody. As I said, I done told you. We've told everybody where we're going. We've told everybody what we're doing. And then if we don't have it, if it doesn't happen, we failed, and we failed publicly. And now we're embarrassed. And now people think that we're not good at what we do. All of that head trash. And my question to you is, does it matter? Does it really matter what other people think about you? What is that saying? What you think about me is none of my business. What matters is how you show up. Are you showing up in integrity? Are you showing up transparently, right? Authentically you. Are you a person of your word? Are you mature enough and honest enough and operating in enough integrity to say, you know what? I messed that up. Here was my intent, but the impact was not what it was supposed to be. And for that, I apologize. And here's what I'm going to do to make it right. How about that? How about just acknowledge it and keep it moving? Because most of the time we get embarrassed because someone else saw something and we didn't want to say anything and they didn't say anything, but they're saying something to other people. They're just not saying it to you. As I was listening to a show on the way back, there was a woman talking about how she was at this event, a book signing for with her niece. It was two princesses, Disney princesses, I think, Elsa and somebody. And she was there with her niece, who was just bubbling over with excitement. And of course, because it's all these little girls, right? They are in line forever for 30 seconds worth of time, right? And the kids don't realize that they're signing it like Princess, Anna or Princess Elsa, and they're spelling it wrong because, copyright, right? And they don't care. They're just getting to see this princess. And so this woman, I'm telling this story because she told it, not because this particular piece is critical. But she said, at one point she put her niece up on her shoulders. And as they got closer to the line, after hours, they got closer to the line, the woman came up and said, hey, you're next, sweetie. Do you want to get down now from your dad's shoulders? Because the woman had assumed, this woman that worked there had assumed that the person that was holding the kid was a guy. And it wasn't. It was a woman. And she said, I admit that I dress pretty androgynously. But she said, in that moment, I had to decide what I was going to say. Was I going to confront this person in front of my niece? Was I going to stand up for myself? Was I going to say something? My niece was so excited. Did she even hear it? I was embarrassed for my family. I was embarrassed for my girlfriend. I was embarrassed for my niece. Was I going to turn this into a thing? She said all this stuff went through it. She said, I decided in that moment to just, I wasn't going to say anything. And she said, we got there. We got our little 30 seconds after waiting for 4 hours. And then as I was leaving, I caught the eye of the person that had said that. And they looked at me and mouthed, I'm so sorry. And she said, in that moment, I realized, you know what? They acknowledged it. And I had to give them kudos for owning it, acknowledging it, and saying something. She said, because we all could have gone off and pretended it didn't happen, which happens a lot. We get so embarrassed that we're afraid to even say, I'm sorry. We're afraid to apologize because we're so embarrassed. But you never know when that one acknowledgement, that one apology, that one moment when you said, oops, I totally screwed that up. I am so sorry. That was not my intent. Here's what I intended to do. Here's how I'm going to fix it. You never know when that one thing is going to completely turn around the day of the person who was impacted. That simply acknowledging that makes a difference. But if we haven't been able to sit in enough quiet to own our own stuff, to know where we are, to know who we are and whose we are, it is very difficult to have enough confidence to say those things and to do those things and to show up. Because we're trained to be perfect. We're trained to not make mistakes. If you're a leader, you're not supposed to make a mistake. I'm telling you, the people follow people who are real, and real people make mistakes. I'm just saying, real people make mistakes. And that's who we follow, right? We the quote I've used a lot that I saw many months ago that said, a lot of times we have a problem in social media because we are comparing our behind the scenes to somebody else's highlight reel. Mm-hmm. I think more and more people are getting more real on social media now because they realize, people don't want to see perfect. They do want to see achievement, but they don't want to see perfect. They want to see you as messy as they are. Mm-hmm. And you still made it. Now, that doesn't mean everybody needs to know all of your mess because some things you need to keep at home. But they do need to see imperfection. Were you gonna say something?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Yeah. Earlier you said insecure perfectionist, overachiever.
Uh-huh.
What is that?
So I call it insecure overachiever. I actually had a CEO name a bunch of us like that. And they're like, oh, I hired all these insecure overachievers. And what it really means is it's almost like imposter syndrome, mm-hmm. right? So you're going to work really hard because you are an overachiever. You're going to make stuff happen. You are on it. But you never really know that you got it right. You aren't really sitting in your own genius, your own expertise. You are constantly second guessing. Was that right? Was that fast enough? It's all the people that are pulling the overnighters, right? Because they don't want to make a mistake. It's that insecure overachievers, right? They're going to make it happen. It's going to work. These are people you can count on to get it done, but they're going to make themselves crazy in the process.
I was dealing with somebody like that just the other day. They were sending me some pictures and they were beautiful for mm-hmm. something we're doing. And I didn't respond back because I go to bed like at 6 o'clock. So right. when they sent them, I didn't see them until the next morning.
Right.
But they automatically they were sending other pictures saying, and if you don't like this one, if you don't like that one. So
yes.
that's what an overachiever.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably. They were, because there was no response immediately.
Right.
The assumption was something was wrong and you just didn't know how to tell them. Mm. And creatives have a hard time with this a lot too, right? Well, let me rephrase that. There are some creatives that have a problem with that. There are some creatives that are so seated deeply in their creativity that they're like, look, this is me. If you like it, great. If not, that's okay, because I'm not for everybody. There are a lot of people who are good with, I am not for everybody. I know I'm not for everybody.
I'm not either.
I'm just not for everybody. But it has taken me a while to do that because we are trained to be acceptable and accepted. We are trained to behave in such a way so that everybody else is comfortable. That's a lot of work.
We have a listener here. LaShonda said,
Hi, LaShonda.
I'm still learning to not rush the process. So I asked her, I said, what is the hardest part in trusting the process to you? And she said, to trust is the one thing that brings about fear of unknown, even though you know it's true and it's what you've heard, but the process doesn't look like you thought. So now trusting becomes the prime focus. Yeah. I just heard in my spirit, just shift your focus, and your focus on is tangible now. Yeah. But I'll process it later.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's the trust is a big deal, y'all. And so when I talk about trusting the process, I really mean trusting the process, not trusting a process, trusting the process. Because if you're trusting the process changes because information comes in and out. When you do something, right? So when you go turn on a light switch, the lights either come on or off. Based on what happens when you flip the light switch, your next process changes. If you were on your way to the kitchen and you need to turn on the light because it's night and then you're going to the refrigerator, right? You flip the light switch, the lights come on. Okay, I can go to the next step of the process. But if I flip the light switch and the lights don't go off, my process changes, right? I have to go figure out, wait, did I blow a bulb? Is the electricity off everywhere? So then, maybe I'm going to check the light on the stove and the clocks and right? So the process is, I'm getting ready to go get something out of the refrigerator and it's midnight, right? A process is I'm flipping on the lights. I'm going to the refrigerator, right? Those kind of things begin to be a piece of the overall process, and those things may change. If the light comes on, you go to the next thing, you go to the refrigerator. Okay, well, the refrigerator opens. Well, there's nothing in the refrigerator. So now I got another piece of process to decide because I was going into the refrigerator to get a piece of fruit. What I didn't remember is that I forgot to buy fruit. So now my process has changed. I'm still going to the refrigerator because I need something to eat. Are you going to be able to respond? If I go in here and flip this switch on and I don't have lights, do I know what I'm going to do? Am I going to be ready? Do I have a generator? Do I have light bulbs? Do I have, a machine that I'm relying upon? Is there someone else I can call? Have I charged up my devices, right? Am I prepared for whatever's going to happen in the process? That's where trust comes. Trust comes out of preparation. And luck is when preparation meets opportunity. I think Oprah said that, right? There's no such thing as luck. Luck is just when preparation meets opportunity. So having a process and trusting the process is understanding that you are constantly going to get new information. Can you trust yourself to respond to that information as you still move to the ultimate goal, the ultimate outcome you're trying to achieve? Because things may change along the way. But by knowing the ultimate goal, those changes become simply detours and not derailments. Flipping a switch and not having lights doesn't mean you still don't get to eat. It just means you may have to be eating in the dark or by candlelight or with a flashlight. So the ultimate goal hasn't changed. Just how you get there is different. And what happens is sometimes the how keeps us from getting to the what, because we get so caught up in the how not being what we expected. But if we've taken time to sit, to rest, to rejuvenate, to open up space, to know that we can trust ourselves to respond, our ability to react to those changes like that gets to be much better and much stronger. And then the trust gets better and the trust gets stronger because it's kind of experience, right? I went through this, this whatever thing happened. I went through this before. I've had no lights before. What did I do? Oh, you know what? The last time I didn't have lights, the last time we had a power outage, I was okay. Here's the things that I did. The last time we had a power outage, it was so long and I had stuff to do, but I had friends who still had power, so I can always do that. The last time I had power outage, I was smart. The first time I had a power outage in my house, I was smart enough to realize, oh, you know what? When they built this garage, they didn't build a door in the garage. The only thing the garage has is a garage door, which means if the power's out, I can't get my car out to get out of my house because I can't get in the garage to let the garage, because I could disconnect the garage door opener, but I can't get in to disconnect it because there's no door. So what did I do? I made sure I put a door in the garage. So now I know, my experience tells me I can trust myself to be able to get out of my house if I lose power. Because I had made preparations in the process to be able to take care of me.
When this storm came up, or that we were supposed to have the storm, the first thing I thought about was charcoal, because I remember when the lights was out and I was like, I can't even barbecue.
Yeah.
And so bought the charcoal, and then I saw people on social media, nothing happened, blah, blah, blah. But I was more happy that I would have been prepared if something happened. And you said that.
Proper prior planning prevents poor performance.
Let's go back to this grind mentality, because I remember before the pandemic, it was all about, we got to grind, we got to grind. Yeah. That language sounds foreign to me now. So, because I've heard people say, well, it's just not going to come to you. But sometimes when you sit and you get into your thoughts that he gives you, it does come to you because your head is clear and you have a strategy. So help the people that feel that they have to grind.
I've gotten to the place as I've started my business, and especially in this last year, and I did a podcast on that. So it's called Put a Little Grace in Your Hustle is the name of the podcast episode. That hustle and grind thing, y'all, we put so much pressure on ourselves. If you didn't get it, you weren't grinding hard enough. The daily grind. I mean, it is just insane, the kind of pressure we put on ourselves, that if we don't get something, it's that we didn't work hard enough for it. We didn't want it bad enough. And that's not necessarily true. That's not necessarily true. Now, that doesn't mean you get to just sit back and say, okay, I'm here, just bring it to me. That's not what it means. But it does mean that sometimes you have to be still, because there's action you need to take. But how do you know what that action is if you hadn't taken time to really think about it, to really evaluate, to really understand where am I trying to go and what needs to happen in order for me to get there? Right? So that whole grind mentality, man, is pressure that we don't need. It's pressure that we don't need. We need to give ourselves some grace, because one, at some point, you're not going to be able to grind the same way. You're going to have worn yourself out, right? Burnout is real. And if we've been so focused on just grinding, if you don't take the time, how do you even know that you're grinding in the right direction? How do you know that that grind that you're doing really is along the path to your ultimate outcome, if you never take the time to pause and think about it? We got to put some grace in that hustle. We got to put some grace in that grind, because that focus on grind will get you to a place where you get to an outcome that wasn't even what you wanted, because you didn't pause to say, am I even grinding in the right direction? And not just fall to the peer pressure of you not working hard enough, you're not grinding hard enough. Put some grace in your hustle. Give yourself some time to pause, to reset, to open up space. Go to Senya. Go to whatever your place is. Being outside on the deck may not be your thing. It may not be your thing. Whatever your thing is, find your thing that gives you peace and gives you space to let your brain breathe, let your spirit breathe, to let you hear the messages you need to hear, and then come back and regroup. I mean, your growth, your movement will be exponential, because now you're clear. And it is not unkind to be clear with others and with yourself. All right. Any other questions or comments before we head out today?
No.
Thank you guys again for tuning in. Stay tuned. I'm going to be posting some stuff. Again, really pushing the show, pushing the podcast. If you are interested in being a sponsor for the Rutledge Perspective Radio Show, hit me up in my Facebook page. I would love to have that, even if you just want to be a friend of the show. So there's multiple levels. If you want to do that, let me know. Go download the podcast. Go subscribe, especially the hustle. Put some grace in your hustle. That I don't remember how far back that is, but that's one of them. We're coming up on 100 episodes. So thank you. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for being a part of my journey. Thank you for all the birthday love. I truly do appreciate it. And we will be here next week. We're going to have a couple of encore shows too. Probably on either Wednesdays or Fridays, to make up for some shows that we missed because of our weather here in Houston. So we will get those announced to you. Take care, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everybody.